mini ep with a fabulous guest who will introduce himself in a minute. And I just want to say that this mini ep is one that I have been excited about since day one of even seeing Wayward, which is looking at the relationship between Twin Peaks, David Lynch, 1991, and the show. And there are, as we've talked about, so many beautiful overlaps. And I'm sure we're only scratching the surface today, but I'm really excited. Hi, Avery. How are you doing?
I am so excited to be here. I was just looking up May's astrological chart, as you know, before we were talking, and I had to go look to see if they were born in 1991. They weren't. They were born in 87. So close.
87.
I mean,
Oh,
they
that's
were a
interesting.
teeny baby when Twin Peaks came out.
Oh my gosh. I love that you did that.
Fascinating. I'm so excited to have our guest here, Patrick. Come on in. So good to see you.
Hey, it's so good to be here. I feel so fortunate and lucky to be reconnecting with the both of you and to be on a podcast talking about like so many of my favorite things, right? It's like therapy and psychology with people who love talking about it, television, media analysis, the therapy room, the therapeutic relationship. I love all of this stuff. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist. I'm here in my
Mm.
office in the Castro in San Francisco. I work primarily with queer couples and queer people in other relationship arrangements and queer adult individuals. And I think, sort of as I watched Wayward and also was listening to the first few episodes of your podcast, it started like, I don't believe in coincidences. I think of like synchronicity as like a thing that just happens. It started to come up in some of my clients, like navigating this adolescence that they maybe didn't
Mm.
have when they were in their teen years because the world wasn't created for them and so they couldn't be who they were. And there's now this like kind of dating and relationships and the world and stuff. And like multiple clients had mentioned like something about a second adolescence or like wanting to go to
Wow.
prom again in a different way. And I'm like, this is
Mm.
just so relatable for me. And like then watching the show about teenagers and kind of the quote problem of adolescence and trying to fix and solve it, I'm like, oh, it like brings me to this kind of like place of like feminist and queer theory of like questioning the authority and questioning the messages that we all get from the media and from the systems that we're in. And like that's I just love doing that. I love when witnessing folks kind of recognize those things like, I've been growing up in this time and place that's been telling me I'm not right. And like, let's get out of that. And I think
Yeah.
it relates to all of the things that I hope we're going to talk about today.
Thanks so much for that, Patrick. It's great to hear about your work
Mm,
and see you in the therapy office in the Castro. And yeah, just on this the other side of the education environment, and now like coming back and teaching with us and being on the other side of the education environment. So excited to dig into all these things and yeah, just to hear more about your work as we go along.
yeah.
The teen rebellion that you're talking about is so exciting.
Mm,
It's so revolutionary, and in that way that we each personally may go through a kind of a journey of rebellion against our parents and their values, but the larger society as well. And that really feels like so precious to me. I love that rebellion that comes with
mm,
teenagers. It's very life-saving too for a lot of queer people. The part of you that like can push back and be like, no, I'm gonna be who I am, whether you like it or not, has been life-saving. And I really hear you. I've done that work with so many of my trans clients in particular that work around like re-teenagering and
mm.
just like trans women clients that I've had who just want to go to the mall with girlfriends so
Yes.
bad,
Totally.
Yes. Yes. And also it sort of speaks to I've heard you talk about before, it's the job of the teenager to rebel. And it's their job to kind of separate and individuate from their parents and society and authority figures. And so I like seeing that in kind of in my adult clients of like sort of rejecting the status quo.
So I've been wanting to have this episode for a while because I know you have been tracking so many parallels between Twin Peaks and Wayward, and that this has been like a thread that has been weaving back and forth for you all along. So I'm just so curious to hear your thoughts about all of this too.
My goodness. I mean, there's so much to say. And I guess I should also say that I invited Patrick to join us on this episode, A, because I love Patrick, and B, and B, Patrick's an amazing clinician, and C, Patrick and I really started to connect when, Patrick, when you were in my Twin Peaks class that I teach an elective at CIIS on Twin Peaks and depth psychology. And I was like, wait, Patrick, who is Patrick? What's happening? And we started geeking out in a way that was so beautiful and has continued ever since.
That's right. That class was so meaningful to me. I think that was a summer class, one semester, and it was sort of like I kind of took it a little bit as just because I was curious about, like I said before, like the overlap between the work that we're doing, being in school, and kind of learning about areas of psychology and how pop culture and media kind of overlaps. And I'm a big fan, and I think I got this maybe from you and from that class. The pop culture in the therapy room is such a great way, like, and Avery, I imagine you do that too. Like, it's such a great way to have, like, to create a shared language with
Yes.
a client. And like, it's almost like our modern day fairy tales, like
Mm-hmm.
what sort of morals and lessons, or like fables, like what morals and lessons can we get? And how can we talk about that through characters and
Exactly.
through plot points and story arcs and stuff. And so I love that. Yeah, that Twin Peaks class really kind of set me off on that kind of path.
Yeah, pop culture and psychology, like how it comes into the therapy room, is one of my most favorite things in the world. I had a session with a client the other day, and it was all about Star Wars, the entire session. Mind you, I have barely seen Star Wars, maybe many years ago. I remember the Muppets. That's not helpful. Don't say Muppets in relationship to Star Wars. I understand what I'm saying. Okay, erase what I just said. The point is, I didn't need to necessarily know every single moment of Star Wars in order to have this client relate their life experience and this moment in time as they're feeling into the grief, a collective grief around fascism as it relates to the galaxy of Star Wars. And that is incredible. Like that, seeing that helped them access a part and emotional components that I don't think that they would have otherwise been able to access. That's powerful. The same with, clients who come in and relate to characters. I had a client in the past who really related to Laura Palmer. And when Twin Peaks was on, it was the mirroring of a young girl who had been sexually assaulted and had experienced incest at the same time, where she saw herself reflected. And think about that. This is primetime TV, right? Seeing herself reflected in this major character on this show that blows up and becomes so famous. And then now that comes into more casual conversation. It comes into the zeitgeist more, conversations around sexual assault and ongoing CPTSD. And that mirroring is so critical. And then we get to talk about that. So I get to talk about Twin Peaks and its healing. And I mean, and how fun is that? And those are just like two little examples of what for me happens all the time. And I invite it in. I invite it in by pulling in archetypes and asking clients, like, if they're like, oh, yeah, well, I read this or I watched the show last night. What did you watch? What are you reading? Inviting that in. And then they can say, like, they don't want to talk about it or change the subject, and that's fine. I'll follow wherever you go. But there is such incredible entry points into the psyche and spirit through pop culture. And I think a lot of us find Twin Peaks because we can relate to all of the weirdness of it. We can relate to the obscurity, to the dreamlike states, to the trauma, to the collective trauma of the town. If you look at the town as a character, and if you look at the town of Tall Pines as a character, and the trauma of that town, Tall Pines is in a collective trauma and in a spell, really, a cult spell, right?
Like a trauma vacuum, like
A trauma vacuum. Yes. Yeah. And I think Twin Peaks is too. It's in a multi-dimensional trauma vacuum. That's beautiful, Avery. Like that's, and so it's not even just the individual characters and the overlaps there, it's the bigger picture as the town as a character.
I love there's a line where Alex says something like, there's something off about this place. And like it was like it was and it's I think it's not at the beginning, it's sort of toward the middle of the season. And it's like it's been implied, but it's finally he says it. He goes, "There's something off about this place." Yes, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, David Lynch did such an amazing job of creating places that were so off, but so Americana. Yeah, so I mean, the offness in a way is like shining a light, I think, in both cases on an offness that is really there, like IRL. Really, people are kidnapping teenagers, and that is really sick and fucked up. And really, incest is happening, and there is a darkness in the human soul that is always happening. And it is refreshing to see that. I was thinking as you were talking earlier, Em, about your client, just how many survivors, in particular of incest, just so many people don't know what to say or won't talk about it or don't talk about it. Or we try, people I'm sure were protesting like crazy when Twin Peaks came out, like, oh, how dare
Mm.
you talk about this. But folks who are victims in the situation are so ostracized because of that, and their life experience has no place to exist or be normalized. And that is such a huge part of the trauma for so many survivors. It's just that no one can even bear the conversation about what happened to them. And that's, I don't know, people think they're being nice, I guess, to not talk about it, but it's so othering and it's so damning for folks to feel that sense of like, oh, my whole existence is unspeakable in the public. And so both of these shows, I feel like, talk about things that are, normal but unspeakable, or not normal but commonplace.
Yeah, I think sort of adding to what you just said, Avery, the also the ripple effect that happens of this kind of manufacturing normalcy or digestibility of something and how it affects everyone um, who is related. Everyone in both of these places is affected in some way by the trauma that's going on, and then the systems that have been built up to prevent us from seeing it or touching it or even talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And both shows, speaking to the Americana part, it's like, in Twin Peaks, it's commentary on like the atomic age and forward, right? Of like the age of convenience, the age of oil and production and industry. And then in Tall Pines, it's a version of the same thing with this Ponderosa Corporation, which we have to talk about. But like on the surface, everything is perfect. It's Stepford wives e, right? On the surface of Twin Peaks, it looks beautiful. Look at Audrey Horne in her like cute outfit with bobby socks or what have you, right?
How could you possibly stop looking at Audrey Horne in that outfit?
And the scene where she gets to school and changes into the red pumps, and smokes the cigarette into the locker. She's
I instantly think of that whole sequence because it's right at the beginning, right?
Yep.
That's like pilot
Pilot.
stuff. Like
uh-huh.
it
Mhm.
just so captivating. Sherilyn Finn
Grabs
just
you.
gets you from the jump with that whole little intro scene. The music that's playing there, gorgeous as all the music in Twin Peaks, but just so mm, cherry
Yes.
pie in a
Cherry
scene.
pie. Cherry pie.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And Avery, you just mentioned music. One of the connections I made was the importance of music in both of these
Hmm.
shows. Oh
Nice.
my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, mood setting, storytelling, when the main theme gets distorted, right? It plays in a cute guitar way and then it plays in a distorted way right after. It's the look, everything is great, and then the undercurrent is really fucked up. The pilot of Twin Peaks, it's like everyone's in school and everyone looks, oh, we're just looking at the board and da da da. And then a girl runs across the screen in the back just screaming. It's like that in Tall Pines too. It's like Avery, when we talked about like Evelyn hugging too close inappropriately, it's like that. It's like, oh look, it's Evelyn. She's here and she's brought a basket full of homemade baked goods. And isn't she lovely on her bike? And oh, she's so she's so environmentally friendly. And then she gets in with Alex and is like it's too much. And so there's like I'm not comparing the hug to the screaming girl, but kind of like there's something that an undercurrent that is not okay going on here.
Yes. And I think that it takes an outsider like Alex or Coop to to start to point it out and
Yes.
maybe kind of break the spell. And I love watching I loved watching Alex and thinking of Coop and how his sort of like when he first comes to Twin Peaks, he's like, what are these trees? And what is this coffee? And who makes this pie? And all that, like, he's just so almost childlike. And I think Alex less so, but still has that kind of outsider energy of like, I'm not quite sure about this. I'll play along, but I'm also having some doubts. I love that. It takes like the outsider to kind of see through the artifice.
Yeah, and Layla and Abby too, in their own ways, as outsiders coming in, seeing through everything that's going on and like being the holders of that. And then of course with Lila, the town sucking her in
Mhm.
eventually, like her getting eaten by that because of her own, CPTSD.
I was thinking of my favorite Agent Cooper line is well, who can have a favorite? But one of the ones that sticks with me the most is from Fire Walk with Me when he's there at the trailer park with Carl and he just kind of like randomly heads off in this other direction and Carl's like, going and Coop just says, I'm going over here.
I love that
And it's
line.
that just that capacity to like follow the intuition is something that I feel like really Alex and Coop share so much. Like they both just like, oh, I'm up here in the closet. Oh, I see this box. I'm gonna grab that box of files about tall pines and I'm gonna read it, and there's something that both of them have that's a very, despite, Alex's many violent flaws, there's something very innocent about how each of them approaches investigation through their intuition.
And then over time, we see Cooper's vulnerability and his sort of, you know, past of not being able to protect Caroline, and then what that has led to with, the introduction of Wyndham Earl. And so him not doing his job in a right way. Now, does that equate to like, pummeling someone to death with I'm not saying that, but just that these are very imperfect heroes, they rose,
Mm.
whatever. I guess Alex
Hmm.
is a hero.
Hmm.
These are very imperfect heroes, and that makes them that much more also likable and relatable to us as the audience, because in some ways we are also, viewers are also the outsiders looking in. Like we have that viewscape on all of the towns, all of it.
Yes, which for me makes both of the shows a lot of times painful and uncomfortable to witness. The like both Alex and Coop, I don't know, I get this sense of like goodness can kind of save the day or love can break the cycle of trauma and like, but what happens when it doesn't? Right? And that's a lesson, I don't know, I guess for the audience too, of like these imperfect kind of myths and fables that we have of like, maybe evil sometimes still has a hold. Ugh.
That reminds me of my favorite Major Briggs line when Wyndham Earl asks him what his greatest fear is, and he says the possibility that love is not enough. Ah, crushing,
Ah,
but that's what we face, right? That's what we face as therapists with our clients so often. In couples and relationship work, especially, Patrick, like I was thinking of your work with, all kinds of relationships. That's a reality we run into a lot. Sometimes love is not enough. Sometimes I need you to do the fucking dishes.
Yes. Yeah, yes, that's so true. And also, like, it ties in a little bit for me. Like, a lot of what I see is, or sometimes hear, is folks kind of relating to one another or other people in their lives based on things that they've seen in TV and movies and stuff, the way things are supposed to be. And so there's also like this, like what you just said, Avery. Sometimes you just need to do the dishes. Like, I like having imperfect characters and imperfect storylines and more realistic depictions, right? Because a lot of what I think if I'm working with clients who are in their like 30s, 40s, 50s, I don't know, we grew up with like kind of these I I think of it sometimes like these Hallmark Christmas movies where like the thing that you need to do is blow up your life, move back home and fall in love with the person you went to high school with. And like, ah, it doesn't work for anyone. It doesn't work for everyone. Might work for some people, but I feel like I don't know this. I think of Esther Perel and like the thing of like there's no just one. Like our job is not to be searching for just the one. Like there's work here to be done, right? It's not just this instant kind of there's magic, but I don't think it's like still takes effort and work and thought and well, all that stuff. Communication.
a real willingness to like let go. A couple of my students were talking over the weekend about something one of their couples therapists had said, which is you essentially every fight that a couple has boils down to why are you not me? Uh, which is so real. Just like constantly, it's so humbling to run into that over and over again. Oh, you do this differently. Oh, you do this differently. Oh, you don't care about that at all. That's like so important to me. And it feels like such a betrayal in a way, but it's such a, like a very childlike and kind of silly construct to proceed from. But in some places, I certainly have been very guilty of, pounding on that wall.
Yes, and sometimes those very things that are getting under my skin today were the things that drew me to that person in the first place. Oh, that difference is so interesting. Well, now it's really bugging
100%.
me.
Yeah, right.
And
Right.
it sort of makes me think of like a lot of the themes in both of these shows is like the duality, the dual nature, the light and the shadow, or the dark and the light, or the good and the bad, and that kind of like the true self, false self. I think about a lot of like who are we? Like even in the names of some of the characters, I'm more so in Wayward than maybe in Twin Peaks. I don't know. Y'all can sort of school me on that, but I just think like Evelyn Wade, evil, right? That's like, but also she like, I don't know. It might be important for your listeners, but I am in an Evelyn Wade inspired look today of
Oh
a
my God,
sort
obsessed.
of turtleneck and like a
God, you
wool
are,
work
you
shirt
are.
and some wire glasses. And I wanted to get like a long denim skirt and Birkenstocks, but like that idea of like this person who is so put together and has to be compelling and engaging and kind of drawing people in is also so damaged and doing these despicable things, right? It's like, oh, but she looks great. It's like, like I don't know. I was also thinking of like Cruella de Vil, right? Like even with evil in the name, or Eveline from The Wiz. These were just like powerful people, and they looked great, but they were so despicable.
But it kind of makes me think about Leland too, and it's a weird crossover with Evelyn and Leland. But these kind of like they're both create casting spells, and there's like the mother chant that happens, which is also like there's the firewalk with me chant, one chants out between two worlds, and it's kind of like this part of the spell, and then you can't actually leap, you have to just keep going back. That's how the cult works. This is narcissistic injury, and it's Twin Peaks. It's also how violence and Bob and incest work. It's the evil that men do and the evil of the mother wound and Wayward. Leland being so susceptible to Bob coming in, but on the outside, Leland's amazing. Look at him. He's the lawyer. He's working with Ben Horn. I mean, he just like he looks like a great father, all of these things. And I'm not saying that he's a cult leader, but just that there's similarities of how evil and violence and power operates in these different systems.
Well, it is now. I am glad that I looked at David Lynch and Mae Martin's birth charts before this, because I mean, what you just said, like David Lynch, he has so much stuff in Capricorn, which is literally the sign of the father. So he has like Sun and Mercury in Capricorn. And Mae Martin is a Taurus sun and Cancer moon. And both of those are extremely feminine. And the Cancer moon in particular is like the moon's ruled by Cancer. And so that's like a kind of a double whammy of like very maternal, emotional kinds of preoccupation. The breast, the milk, it's all that Cancer moon. All the brie comes right out of that Cancer moon. But yeah, I mean, Mae Martin is solidly here in a place of the mother wound, and David Lynch is here to talk about the father wound for sure. And and I see that very, yeah. Now that you bring it up, that's
Absolutely. And in the
mhm.
scenes with when Leland dies, finally with all of the sprinkler system going off, and he's in the cell, and he's Bob is trying to kill him, and he ends up dying in Coop's arms. Actually, he's holding him and it's wet everywhere. And then Evelyn leaping at the end of Wayward, and Rabbit's holding her. I mean, there's just this like, whoa, that to me is something.
Chills, total chills right now.
Yes. And it then speaks to sort of the religious and spiritual aspects. Michelangelo's Pietà with the mother figure holding the dying Christ figure is like, oh, the religious imagery in Wayward. There's this scene, I think, in one of the last episodes where Laura has this giant, I think she's talking to Rabbit. Rabbit comes over to get in touch with Laura, and she's sitting, and there's this halo behind her. Ah, and then at the same time, it's sort of like Alex is catching on that maybe Laura might be sort of not who he thinks she is, or maybe more attached to the town and to the academy than she's let on. And it's like all of this duality. It's so good. Also, I noticed the first off, Laura and Laura,
Yeah.
Laura Palmer,
Yeah.
Laura, I think
Yeah.
Redmond is her last name. Yeah, and that scene where the dream where she's in the water.
Yes, and they're both these kind of archetypally beautiful, traditionally, revered blonde-haired, beauties, right? A prom queen equivalent, like, gorgeous. There's a moment where Laura confronts Evelyn and she says, I was 17, you drugged me, you took everything. And it occurred to me in this moment that Laura Palmer she confronts her in a way that she couldn't ever really confront her dad, because she gets frozen in time. I'm thinking about in Fire Walk with Me when they're in the car and they're just in the intersection and everyone is screaming. And the one-armed man, Philip Gerard, shows up on the side and then he's trying to give her the ring. It's a whole screaming situation, but there's never that moment of like, I was 12, you started raping me when I was 12, fuck you kind of thing. But she does do it through the diary. Through the diary, the confrontation and those words happen. And so I was just, and what she tells Harold, so she's able to speak it out. But I was just thinking about the power of being able to confront your abuser, and how a lot of times in working with clients, especially too, that just doesn't happen. And mostly, I would say, like for me, mostly in my experience, it doesn't happen. But we have the opportunity to have the corrective emotional experience in what would you say? What would you want to say? How can we like work this here in a way that's transformative and, powerful in your healing journey?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's one of the things that we could do so much better. Obviously, around the carceral system, it's just more kinds of restorative and transformative justice in which people can actually have meaningful accountability and acknowledgement and at least their own capacity to confront the person who hurt them. It is something that I will say, like I had a kind of a gay bashing assault in 2008, and I was given so much power through the court system. And one of the things that I got to do was to just tell him everything I wanted to tell him. And so, it's not like those opportunities don't come up in the traditional legal system, but also like I'm white, that dude was white. I don't know, what rights other people have, I know are really different.
Thanks for sharing that, Avery. And that's like huge. I'm so glad that you had that opportunity.
You know what? I really credit Kamala Harris for a lot of that. She had just gotten them to be DA in SF, and she had just passed an anti-hate crime bill that really helped my case out and like gave me specifically a lot of autonomy. So
Wow.
I will always be a fan of hers for that.
Well, and also in these relationships, Laura Palmer can't doesn't have power as a young person to leave her family system. I mean, not really. I mean, she could, but whatever, she's trapped in that house in that continued cycle. And so is Laura in the cold and the continued cycle. But Laura does find her way out, but then she repeats the fucking cycle. So I don't know how well that really worked out, but is something.
I mean, I know we talked about in one episode that we recorded the possibility that Laura Palmer could have like in another alternate universe be this Laura who like got away from her family and went to Tall Pines. But I was just thinking of the alternate universe in which like Laura Palmer would have like I don't know, like gotten away, and like how would she have repeated, not in Tall Pines, but just like in Twin Peaks, like how would she probably have repeated cycles of abuse? She probably would have continued to like mess around with Leo and guys like him and ended up in a family with somebody, it is, the repetition is so real.
Yeah, and just like, diving further into addiction, and it's like, God, what Laura Palmer would be like my perfect client. I would love to work with Laura Palmer so much. And Nadine Hurley. That's a sidebar. Nadine Hurley is my favorite character in Twin Peaks. Always has, always wills. I'm co-authoring this book about trauma in Twin Peaks right now, and every time Nadine comes in, I am just unhinged. I'm like, Nadine, and get it, and she's da da da, and look what she did, and she went to high school, and she did. Oh my God, now she's fucking Mike. Get it? Like, I'm so unhinged because I love her so much.
Yes, I was thinking of Nadine as sort of like the archetype of resilience and kind of the person even who like through everything kind of comes out, and then by the return she's running her own thing. I just think she's, and I somehow was like putting her, relating her to Stacy in Wayward. I, the red hair maybe, but also like just the passion and the dedication. There's this scene where it's the episode titled Mud, and there's a whole thing about cleaning. And Stacy's there holding the Windex bottle while Abby's cleaning the windows, and she says something like, "I'm going to do the leap, and finally I'll be clean," or something like that. And I'm thinking of Nadine with trying to get the drapes to run quiet, like she finally gets it. And
Yes.
Love that,
right.
Patrick.
And there's this thing for me that came up like with the Stacy character of sometimes a lot of my work in supervision or in consultation is like separating what I want for the client or what I think I want for the client or what I think they want with what they tell me they want and what they want. And there's this scene where Stacy gets adopted. And I think one of the parents' names is Brie. Is that right? Is there this connection between
Oh my
the
God, I
Brie
didn't
from the
catch
beginning?
that. I didn't
I
catch
think
that. Holy shit. Oh my God.
I think so. She gets adopted by, and one of the parents is Brie, and she goes off, and it seems like hard to tell because it's just her facial expression in the car window. I think of like, is she getting what she wants, or is she damaged, or is there something still wrong with her? Like, and I kind of want to like my rescuer comes out and wanting to kind of save her. But yeah, I don't. It's like that thing of like one of my first supervisors reminded us that every client has the radical right to self-determination, and that a lot of my work is like let hold more loosely, like you can't control it. And that was making me think a lot of Stacy, and then of course Nadine too.
Oh my gosh, I love that over that connection you're making about clean. Like, I can get trauma off of me. I can get evil off. Like, I can actually transform it. And Nadine sort of controlling her environment by making silent drape runners, which she does, and is an entrepreneurial and realness, serving entrepreneurial realness. And but quieting down her world is so important. Then, of course, she goes into a psychosis and goes back to high school. But I like that connection. And we were just talking a little bit about like Nadine and her cotton balls and her eye patch and like her iconography, and like Oatmeal Beth. Like, I think Avery, you said in the past, like Oatmeal Beth is such a Twin Peaks character. And like she fully is. Like, you would walk into a store in Twin Peaks and Oatmeal Beth would be buying oatmeal, and they would be like, yeah, that's Oatmeal Beth, like the log lady, right? It's just Oatmeal Beth. Like, she's amazing. She's so good. And she has like a moment of rebellion in the rise, right? In the huge resistance rise. She has a moment of joining in and kind of individuating and just being her cute oatmeal self. I have a couple of other just like Twin Peaks crossover things that I was thinking about that I just, if that's okay, I just will share them and then would love to hear your thoughts. One is there is a mostly absence of BIPOC folks like in Twin Peaks in Wayward. There's just not, it's a very white show. And it kind of makes sense because of all of that, but and the Pacific Northwest and everything in 1991. But just to name that, there's a lack of diversity. There is gender diversity in both shows, which is great. I like. Just thinking about Fix Your Hurts or Die and Alex's representation. In episode 3, there's a bad pond smell that comes up, which to me reminded me of scorched engine oil. which is an indicator that Bob is around and nearby. And the bad pond smell is like this indicator of this underworld of the leap and what is being split off, the trauma that's being split off. So that came to me. There's the mouth entry with the door, and of course the frog moth in the return that goes into Sarah Palmer's mouth, which I still want to get a tattoo of. Sidebar. It's disgusting. I understand that. There's also we in season 2, Mae Martin, we will learn more about the Ponderosa Corporation, which is funding the whole, like they're in charge of this whole Tall Pines Academy. And I was like, Ponderosa, there's something Ponderosa in the return. The log lady's log is a Ponderosa pine. And it's described as being, the Ponderosa pine is indigenous to the Northwest. And David Lynch has mentioned the smell of Ponderosa pines when discussing the inspiration for the setting of Twin Peaks. And the pilot of Twin Peaks was called Northwest Passage at first. And then the town was initially going to be surrounded by Ponderosa pines instead of Douglas firs. And then the last thing that feels very important to me is the brie. The brie is always important to me. Let's be real about that.
And I love that. I love that.
It's not about the brie. Abby's mom says in the first episode, there's all of this hubbub about the brie in the kitchen, right? And then what the brie represents. And Patrick, I'd love to hear your thoughts, like just on the brie situation generally. And it's not about the brie, kind of hits and changes the energy of the scene, because what is happening between all of them has nothing to do with brie. It's about power, it's about control, it's about money and resources. And saying it's not about the brie that's right. There is so much more going on underneath. In the return, in Twin Peaks The Return, this is too far, but it reminded me of it's not about the bunny. It's not about the bunnies, which is Coop in the original series says to Diane, I'm sitting here looking at a box of chocolate bunnies, something to that effect. And we don't know anything else about it, but it's this funny comedic moment and then a jump cut to something. And in the return, they're like, okay, let's make the bunny box. So they make a box of chocolate bunnies that was supposedly from 1991. And I have a friend, shout out Jason Matson, who is a prop replicator for Twin Peaks and other things. And he made the box, and it is exactly like the box in the return. And it's like weathered and it looks it's so cray-mazing. Jason Matson, shout out. And shout out to my other prop friends in Twin Peaks world, like Vinny Guerrera. Anyway, so they bring out this box of chocolate bunnies, and one of them is missing because Lucy ate it. And she's like feeling all kinds of, first of all, that's disgusting. Number one. Number two, she's feeling all kinds of things about it. And her and Andy are sort of like fighting about it. And then Hawk says, you guys, it's not about the bunnies. And that's a funny moment, right? It's a funny moment to laugh about chocolate bunnies. But like the brie, it's not about the bunnies. It's about, whoa, we have reopened a file box of Laura Palmer. We have reopened this history of collective trauma of the town. And that is a lot of shit that's stirring that now is getting sort of centralized or located in the bunny fight, which has nothing to do with what actually people are freaked out about. And like that's my interpretation. And I'm sure listeners will have other thoughts on that. And that's what's so great about David Lynch, is that we can talk about our thoughts on David Lynch literally till the day we die. But that's what kept stirring up for me, is like these food items, chocolate and cheese, which when we think about that on a bigger level are some of the most delicious things ever, right? Like chocolate and cheese are like very, I don't know, sought after food items, like, but like what is underneath
Soothing.
these
Most
things?
of them, both like cheese and chocolate, have this particular quality when people talk about them of like soothing. Again, we're like back at the breast, like
Mhm.
the,
Mhm.
milk chocolate, brie, they both do incorporate. And I think chocolate also has all those wonderful endorphins in it. It literally is like
Yes.
both of them are, I mean, I've heard also cheese has stuff in it that is like addictive. Like both of them are chemically compelling and soothing.
Yes, chemically compelling. I
But we're
love it.
maybe like we're covering stuff up with those
Yes.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really about that, you know, what are we trying to soothe? The father
Absolutely.
wound and the mother wound.
Oh my God, Avery. Why
Oh
did
my
you just
God.
mic drop this shit?
The end.
I'm so glad you followed your muse on it's not about the brie and it's not about the bunnies. I knew you would get there. It was brilliant.
I couldn't stop thinking about it and I had to figure it out. So those are my, those are just, and I'm sure as there's so much more underneath and the underworld of both of these places, there's so many more overlaps and connections. I'm sure cinematography wise, I'm sure, in some of the writing that we've missed or that I've missed, like there's probably so much more, but these are some very clearly beautiful, beautiful choices, Mae Martin. Thank you for these choices. Thank you for having the opportunity to talk about the intersection of these worlds. Also, I've been talking and monologuing for a very long time and inviting you both in on your kind of like final thoughts on this incredible overlap.
I don't think I could add anything better than the way that both of you just summed it up.
Oh. The only things I have left will only open us up longer, so I'm trying to just,
No,
let
but
it
not.
be.
But you have to say it. Just say it, and it's okay because it's like a great doorknob.
Mhm. I mean, I'm really going back to like what all of the underbubbling here is the social commentary in both of these and how they inform each other. And I'm kind of also in my head back to May and David Lynch's astrology and thinking about like I think May is a lot like like I in my head, just me, is like David Lynch was just so cool. Like everything David Lynch created was cool. But when you would like look at him talk, like that time where he did a thing where he was like just making quinoa and broccoli. Did you ever see that? It was like special features on it.
I
He's
love it.
such a nerd, but like such a like a little but May, I feel like comes forward like strong nerd but like there's a cool guy in there that kind of came out in Alex a bit. So that's where I'm at.
Well, I just want to thank you both for this wonderful, wonderful, exciting conversation that was both beautiful and
Thank you.
strange.
Perfect.
And Patrick, thank you for all of your insights and your clinical work and sharing it with us. And how can people find you?
Oh, great question. First of all, it was wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. I feel so lucky to know the both of you and to be able to share this time with you. I'm open to doing this again whenever, like tomorrow. um, I'm currently working at the San Francisco Counseling Collective. You can go to sfcounselors.com or my own website, pfagantherapy.com.
Awesome. And you're accepting new clients, you have space for people.
I am accepting new clients and have space. Yep.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Patrick. Thanks, Em.
Thank you.